Hi guys, how are you all? Good. Okay, so firstly, thank you for coming out today. I have a little bit of a problem when I'm not climbing mountains and cycling around the world. I work in sales, and we all know that sales guys speak for far too long and too much. So I've got 14 minutes to take you guys on a little bit of a journey. Okay. First of all, we've got to rewind. Hold on. There we go. So 7 years ago, this is me riding my Kawasaki ZX6 Ninja. It's quite a fast bike. It topped out at about 174 miles an hour, I think is what I had out of it. I raced pretty much most weekends. I was quite competitive, and I hated losing. And the problem that you have is when you're on a bike, you're on two wheels, and when you're pushing hard, you're either winning or you're generally crashing, which is not a very good combination. And I remember it clearly. I was listening to Jeb a second ago about how time slows down. It's quite funny. I was racing and I was in second place and I was trying to catch this guy. He was just pulling away from me and I was accelerating hard out of a corner. And I remember the back wheel just span up. It lost traction and the back of the bike came round on me. It's called a high side. And all of a sudden, I was doing about 100 miles an hour. So it's quite quick to go flying off a bike. And I remember I was flying through the air and all of a sudden, looking back at the bike, and time did just completely slow down. And I thought, oh dear, this is going to hurt. And I remember, and the problem that you have is when the human body hits concrete at 100 miles an hour, it's not a very good combination. But I hit my head hard and it knocked myself out. I didn't really know a great deal about it. But then I remember coming to at the side of the track and I was gasping for air. And I had this really intense pain all in my lower body, really. A doctor came running over and he said, whatever you do, don't look down. Now, what do you do when you're told not to do something? You do it. And I'd broken my ankle quite badly, actually. The problem that I'd had, it was an open fracture. So instead of my foot pointing forward, it was actually pointing back. And it was all split open and it was quite nasty. That was the major problem. I had broken both my legs, my arm, and my hand, but luckily that was fairly simple to sort out. So I went from being quite an active guy racing bikes every other weekend to lying in hospital with big casts on me. I couldn't do a thing. I had to have a nurse wash me. So it wasn't all bad when you think about it. But yeah, I went from being this really active guy to not being able to do anything. But at the time, I realized my brain always functioned in a slightly different way. I knew I was perhaps a bit different, maybe a bit crazy, I don't know. And I've always had a personal goal to try and row across the Atlantic Ocean. I like the whole theory, I like the concept. Not many people had done it at this point. And I thought, I'm going to try and work towards this. I needed a goal. I needed something to work to. And I don't know if there's any doctors here, but I was staggered at how negative they were. You know, Mr. Ketchell, you've got a very serious accident here. You're not going to be able to do any of this sort of stuff you're doing again. And I just didn't really like that. And I thought, I can just sit here and sort of feel sorry for myself, or I can do something. I can at least try. So to cut a really long story short, I ended up rowing across the Atlantic in 2010. You wouldn't believe it, but that's actually me. I don't look so good in that photo. I think I was 28 then, and I probably look like I'm 48. But there's nothing wrong with being 48. Sun comes up, hair goes blonde, and for some reason my beard goes completely ginger, but ginger is cool. That's Antigua in the background. That was after 110 days, 4 hours and 4 minutes on my own. I had to row on my own because for some reason when I asked people, no one wanted to do it with me. I don't know why. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of footage from the Atlantic. Hopefully it should work. Here we go. Now you'll see this is very much a standard day. The boat's moving up and down, and sometimes the waves are quite easily as high as this sort of room here, but actually you get used to that after a while. I left a little island called La Gomera in the Canary Islands, and I actually took the same route that Christopher Columbus took hundreds of years ago. I rowed to Antigua in the Caribbean. So as I came out of the Canary Islands, I sort of started heading south. Sort of just down the coast of North Africa, and I was utilizing the Canary Current. So the whole massive ocean was moving down the side of Africa. And then once you get down to a certain latitude, so you're getting closer to the equator, you then pick up the North Equatorial Current. And again, the whole massive ocean just moving across to the Caribbean. Now, the row should have really taken about 70 to 80 days, but I didn't really have those trade winds and those particular currents, and I literally had to row every inch of it. But I did one thing. I thought to myself, I'm in an ocean here, and I'm trying to row across it. And I thought, as long as I don't row in circles, by default, I'm going to get to land somewhere. And amazingly, that's what happened. But people say to me, it must have been so boring. All you would see is this ocean and the sky. Yes, that's true, but it is the most amazing place you could be ever, I think. The sun comes up every day, the water just glistens in a different way. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, this is just coming into Nelson's dockyard. I'd rowed for 3,000 miles. Look what happens to the gate. On the last stroke of a 3,000-mile row, it broke. Couldn't believe it. And for me, that really that was the end of the road. But as luck would have it, I had a spare. Champagne in the face is actually really painful. You're much better off drinking it. Yeah. But the wildlife was just incredible. Almost every day, I would see these huge fin whales swim right up to the side of the boat, just gigantic, the size of a bus. They breathe out of their air hole. It shoots water high up into the sky. It stinks of fish, but it's just incredible. I'm sure many of you have seen the film Life of Pi. Flying fish really do fly. I remember it clearly. I rowed for 12 hours a day. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch black. The moon wasn't out, so it was quite a dark evening. And I had my head torch on. And all of a sudden, this white object came flying out the water. Bang! It hit me in the face. And I thought, what the hell was that? But I was so tired. My brain wasn't functioning properly. And I thought I'd just been hit by a golf ball. And I thought, no, hang about. Surely that can't be a golf ball. And of course it wasn't. It was a flying fish. And there it was, flapping up and down on the deck. And I thought, well, what do I do with this damn thing? It's only about that big, so it's not much. And you can't really eat it. So I thought, I'm going to throw it back in so it can perhaps hit someone in the face another day. I'm also a true believer in when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, a door of opportunity will naturally open. And I remember this clearly. I was in Antigua. And I don't know if you guys can remember, back in 2010, a big volcano erupted in Iceland, shot a massive ash cloud up into the sky. Flights are grounded all the way around the world. So I was stuck on Antigua, I couldn't get home. And I was dining out on all these free beers and stuff that people had said I could have. And a couple came up to me and they said, how do you intend to get home? And I said, hey, I've got no idea. And they said, well, listen, we've got an opportunity for you. We're going to sail back to Europe. Would you like to join us? We feel that you're suitably qualified, having spent all this time out in the Atlantic. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, tell me about your boat. And they said, well, why don't we show you the boat? And I said, okay, fine. So I drank the beer and we went off and we had a look at the boat. And it was a beautiful 54-foot Sun Odyssey, which is a luxury sailing boat, about $1 million worth of boat. And it took me about 2 minutes to say, yeah, I'm in. So in 2010, I crossed the Atlantic twice, I rowed it, and I sailed it. Sailing is considerably easier, much easier. And it was actually during my preparation for the row that I met a very good friend of mine who invited me out to climb Everest. And he said to me, when you get back from the road, do you fancy going out to Everest? And I said, yeah, sure, but we've got to get across the Atlantic first. And I remember it clearly. I'd got home, and he rang me up, and he said, James, are you coming to Everest? And he said, oh, by the way, actually, you need to raise £30,000, and you've got 6 months. And I thought, oh, crikey, that's a bit of a problem, because I was bankrupt at this point. And I thought, well, hang about. I've just rowed across the Atlantic single-handed. If I can do that, I can at least try and at least have a go at trying to raise the funds to pull this project off effectively. And so I went back to that concept of if you just keep going, you'll get somewhere or you'll get what you want. And so I put some emails together and some sponsorship proposals, and I started sending them out. And initially, people were coming back saying no. I'd had the credibility that I just rowed across the Atlantic, so that helped. And then all of a sudden, someone said yes, and then it just kind of snowballed. So in 2011, I successfully summited Everest on the 16th of May. Now, with the last few minutes, I'm just going to take you on a bit of a journey up through. This is Lukla, one of the world's most dangerous airports. This is really where the journey begins. I was actually slightly nervous because one of these planes crashed 2 weeks before I flew in and everyone was killed. So I just kind of thought, I hope that doesn't happen to me. Luckily, it didn't. Here we go. I love this photo because there's no real roads or infrastructure in the Himalayas. Everything is carried by human beings, by porters. This guy's got 90 kilograms worth of Pepsi on his back. So that's like me picking someone, one of you guys up from the front row, carrying you on my back all day long and still having a smile on my face at the end of the day. And whenever I've had a tough day at work, I always think about these guys. They are the most happiest people you could ever meet, and they don't actually have a great deal. I think the average wage for some of these guys is maybe $1,000 a year. It's not much. This photo here. The great thing is when you're going up, trekking up to Everest Base Camp, you get a great opportunity to kind of engage with the local people in their communities. And I remember I knelt down and I took this photo. About half a second after that photo, the child just went, boom, and fell off the stool. And I was really worried. And the mum came running out saying, well, what have you done? I said, no, the wind blew the baby off. But it was okay. Here we go. So we were talking about maps earlier. This is a bit of a breakdown of how I went about climbing Everest. From the south side, it's all split into camps. Just makes it a bit more manageable. You'll go up, come back down, go up, then a little bit higher, then back down again. So you've got to go through a series of acclimatization climbs. The reality is there's no shortcut to the top. There never will be. It will never be easy. The day Everest is easy, I think, is the day that a stair lift is installed to the top. It's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay, this is Everest Base Camp. This was my tent at Everest Base Camp. I like this photo here because you see just how small this person is. This is going up through the Khumbu icefall. And the chunks of ice are so huge. Some of them are as large as this building. And the problem that you have, it's moving and shifting all of the time. So if this is to fall on you, you're going to have a real big problem. So the idea is you go through as quickly as you can, but as safely as you can. And we have to cross some of these ladders here. This is a bit of a quite daunting to begin with. This was a real easy ladder to go across. You've got big crampons on, so it takes a bit of getting used to. You don't want to fall, it's a long way down, so you fall off that, it's good night Vienna. Some of the ladders get quite long, like this one. I've got some video footage going across this. Here we go. So if you look closely, you'll actually see the way the ladder is starting to move up and down and buckle from side to side, a little bit like a trampoline. But I'm up to about 6,000 meters at this, about 22,000 feet, so I'm quite high up. And every step that I'm taking is just lung busting. But I had to just look where I wanted to go, just stay nice and calm, and just relax and take it one step at a time. Now, you won't see it in the video here, but there was about 20 Sherpas all sat watching me. So when you're trying to do something and everyone is just watching you, I was quite nervous. And actually, you'll see in a second, this is just my luck. Of all places to get stuck, you'll see what happens to me shortly. My right foot, as I go to lift now, is stuck. And I just had to try and stay calm, and I just managed to loosen it eventually. I was able to get to the other side. That's actually quite scary at the time. Yeah. I was quite tired. I have no idea where the time has gone, so I'm just going to whiz on to some footage that I want to show you. This is going up towards Camp 3. This is Camp 4, highest camp in the world. This is me at Camp 4. You use oxygen to just make things just that a little bit easier. It was for me anyway. This is going up through the night up to the summit from Camp 4. Getting close to the summit now. This is a little bit of video footage that was shot just below the Hillary Step. Give you a really good idea of some of the exposure. That's about 1.5 miles vertical drop, so quite a long way. It'd be great for Jeb and you guys. But we didn't really want to jump off, you see. If you look to the left very closely, you'll see a very thin ridgeline, probably the width of your seat, and we're walking along there. So again, you need to be a bit careful what you're doing. difficult filming at this altitude. It's about -40, so it's pretty cold. This is looking up at the Hillary Step here. Last bit of technical climbing right before you reach the summit. It's easy peasy after the Hillary Step. Okay, this is some video footage that we shot at the summit. So we're now on top of the world. You can see for about 100 miles, the horizon's about 100 miles, and you can actually almost make out the curvature of the Earth. It's an incredible place. Camera's panning north now over the Tibetan plateau. I expect you've got lots of memories flooding back now, haven't you? Let's go to the next one quickly. This is my favorite photo. This is me sat on the summit of Everest with my Nepalese flag here. You wouldn't even know that's me. It could be anyone. I actually look like something out of Star Wars with the whole Darth Vader mask on, just to prove that's me. There we go, the whole ginger beard comes back. And I was actually in hospital after this. I eventually got back home to the UK, and I spent 5 days in hospital with a lung infection. And it was then and there I thought, wouldn't it be a great idea to go and cycle around the world? So I took myself off last year across America. I thought, well, I'd better do some cycling. So I cycled from San Diego to Miami, got across in 22 days, averaged about 120 miles a day. And now this machine here is what I'm currently on. And I'm going around the world. I left London about 105, I've lost count now, 105, 106 days ago. I've been through Europe, I've been through India, I've been through Asia. I've just finished cycling across Australia, and I flew in yesterday. But really, it's not all about, just going off and doing your own thing. I use the opportunity because I love to engage with kids. So I speak to children in schools in every country that I go to, not necessarily encouraging them to be adventurers, but it's a good thing to set goals, work towards things, because the reality is I'm no different to anyone or any of these kids. They can do whatever they want, but you've just got to want it enough. I could talk all day to you guys, but I'd get in a lot of trouble. So from here, I'll be cycling all the way around America and then back to Europe. I've got about 3 months left. And if you want to follow me, there's the website. Thanks, guys.